Hi, this is Ted Billich from Risk Alternatives. In the next few minutes, I want to give your nonprofit 4 steps that it can take in order to be more resilient and sustainable in these uncertain times caused by coronavirus. First, I want you to have a business continuity plan in place. A business continuity plan is a short document that describes key roles for key personnel and contains key information that people will need in a crisis. If you don't have a business continuity plan in place, you can go to our website, riskalts.com, and search for Business Continuity Template. You'll find it. It's free to download. As part of that initial business continuity planning, you should err on the side of being more conservative right now. Don't overextend yourself in the short run because you want to make sure that you're available for your beneficiaries not only now, but into the future. Number 2, after you've gotten a business continuity plan in place, now I want you to focus on making sure that you are not a vector for disease. There is so much misinformation and disinformation out there about coronavirus. I want you to follow best practices in order to make sure that you and your staff are not exposing beneficiaries or each other to harm as a result of this virus. In other words, I want you to first make sure that you take care of your own, and then I want you to make sure that you are a good member of your community. So you've put a business continuity plan in place, and you've made sure that you're not a vector. Now I want you to open your point of view just a little bit. I want you to perform a basic risk inventory within your organization. A risk inventory is not an extensive exercise. Instead, it's simply a structured inquiry into the threats and opportunities that your organization faces. If you don't know how to do a risk inventory, you can go to our website, RiskAlts, and download our ebook, which addresses this issue. Or you can reach out to us and we can take you through the process from a remote perspective. Now, why would you engage in a risk inventory? It's simple. Coronavirus may be your most important threat right now, but until you engage in an inventory, until you assess coronavirus in light of the other threats and opportunities you face, you don't know whether coronavirus and your response to it is the most important thing on your agenda right now. So you do a risk inventory in order to increase the amount of information you have available so that you don't get tunnel vision. Now we're going to go out of the present and project into the future so that we can better assess things in the present. By that, I mean we're going to engage in scenario planning. Scenario planning is not forecasting. Forecasting is an attempt to predict the future with some certainty. Scenario planning involves imagining a particular future and then thinking about what that means to the organization. Let me make that concrete with an example that I think you and your staff should go through right now. Imagine that it's this November and you're facing the following fact of life. On the one hand, you have 15% greater demand for your services. People want more of what your nonprofit does. At the same time, though, you face a 20% reduction year over year in the net amount of revenues you have available to provide those services. Ask your staff how likely they think that scenario really is. I'm not asking them to predict the future. I'm simply asking them to get their assumptions out on the table. By drawing assumptions out on the table, you may find that there are important issues that you need to discuss right now among your staff in order to look at the future uncertainties with greater clarity. What would you expect yourselves to do in terms of changing your service offerings in any way, or changing the mix of revenues and expenses in some way? Why would you want to go through that sort of exercise of scenario planning? Well, yes, you're facing a lot right now, but at least you're not facing that crisis right now. Now is a time when you actually can put down on paper some advice that you would be able to give to yourself if you ever face that future. It's a lot better to face a future having had some perspective about it in the first place. So by engaging in this part of the scenario planning exercise, you are giving your future selves a real blessing. Third set of questions about the scenario planning would be, if there is any real possibility of that scenario happening in the future, what should you be doing right now in the present in order to mitigate some of those threats down the way? Are there ways that you could modify your programs right now that would conserve resources for November? In other words, are there things that you can do now that would help you in case that future came to pass? So you see, scenario planning gives your future selves the gift of a little bit of potential foresight, not in the sense of predicting what will happen, but in the sense of reflecting on what might happen so that you can take steps now to be more resilient and sustainable. In short, we've talked about 4 steps that you can take right now to make your organization stronger in light of COVID. First, make sure you have a business continuity plan in place. Second, make sure that you and your staff are not vectors for disease. Third, make sure that you have performed an inventory of the threats and opportunities that you face throughout your organization. And fourth, engage in scenario planning so that down the road, you have the benefit of having thought about some things, some possibilities now. The future is very hazy. We can't say what will happen, but by thinking clear-headedly about those uncertainties, by dealing with the issues that we can deal with now, we can make ourselves stronger in the face of those uncertainties down the road. And remember, all along the way, Risk Alternatives stands prepared to help.